Hi everybody, Mark here with Couch to Camino 2026, and we are at episode 20, I believe. And today we're going to be talking about hiking poles. What are they? Why do you want them? Why might you need them? Why might you not? Best practices and a whole lot of other stuff. So I apologize, it's been over a week again, but here's just a hint. If you start a YouTube channel where you promise to do weekly updates, don't do it when you have the holidays and building a house all at the same time. Kind of dumb. So let's just get right into it. Oh, we're at day 115. And if you have any questions, you have any comments, leave them down below, or feel free to email me at ask me a Camino question at gmail.com. Starting off well today. You can tell I'm scatterbrained. Hiking poles. I'm probably not going to do a ramble or a TLDL. I'm just going to do this all at one time. This stuff is pretty cut and dry, so let's just get to it. And I do have a favorite things at the end, and I have a favorite place at the end. And my favorite thing is really awesome. It's right there. It's taunting me. I love it. So, hiking poles. Some people need them, some people don't. It's just going to be kind of trial and error for you. I hate to keep saying that kind of thing, but the Camino experience is so fantastically individual that it's hard to say. But in my experience, they really do help. Why? So a hiking pole gives you 2 more points of contact with the ground, which gives you great stability. There are times when you are coming up and down hills or unsure footing that having those extra 2 points of contact really matter. I'm thinking the descent into Zubiri after you leave Roncesvalles, the descent coming from after you cross the peak from Roncesvalles even into, or from Orison into Roncesvalles down through the forest can be very, very tricky. It's nice to have those poles to be able to use for 2 more feet to give you that extra stability. When it's icy or frosty, some of the local Camino friendship groups in Spain have replaced the really kind of okay gravel paths in some areas with cast and textured concrete ramps, which when they get frosty, they're far worse than the gravel. So if you're going to be there when it's frosty and the footing is even more unsure, having those poles to be able to reach out, give you some more stability is totally worth it. Second, pace. Believe it or not, you can walk faster with hiking poles. If you do something called Nordic walking, which is basically the poles are behind, the tips of the poles are behind your center line the entire time, and you're using them alternating with your leg foot strikes, you can actually walk a little bit faster. I cannot do it to save my life. I have tried to, and I end up almost killing myself every time. So look up Nordic walking here on the YouTubes, and you should be able to find some good stuff. If not, what I find is, as I walk with a pack, I tend to lean forward a little bit. So walking with the poles in flats helps me keep my gait a little more upright, keeps my hips a little more upright. It's just easier for me to keep a faster pace that way because I don't feel like I'm curling up as much. Give it a try. Yeah, you might find it works for you, you might not, but I can't imagine doing one without a Camino without hiking poles again at this point. Going uphill. I think I said this in one of my very early videos, maybe the one I did on mistakes, my first mistakes. Having hiking poles when I'm going uphill, it's like being able to grab hold of handrails when you're carrying a heavy load upstairs or when you're trying to climb a whole lot of stairs. Being able to transfer power from your upper body into the ground as you're going really makes uphills a lot easier. Downhills, we covered that a little bit. And there's some different techniques which we'll cover here as I go. There's different ways to use them uphill and downhill, but we'll get to that. And again, back support. If you find you do get some pain in your spinal erectors, in the muscles of your lower back to either side of your spine, it could be that you're just not used to that weight yet, or not used to being in an upright bearing for that long. Really, the hiking poles can help. And there's at times when I've got my hiking poles out, and I just have them stuck in my left hand, and I'm just walking with them and not really using them until I hit a point where I'm doing a little uphill. I'm in uncertain footing, whatever. Then I'll grab them out and use them. But then I'll use them. They're not for me an all the time thing or a never thing. It's situational. So, where to buy these things? They're all over Amazon. If you go to Dick's or Academy, well, maybe not Academy anymore, REI, Shields, the big sporting goods stores, you're probably going to be able to find them. What you might consider is, what I ended up doing my first Camino is, I didn't buy any hiking poles until Pamplona. I wasn't sure if I was going to need them for the trip over the hill. If you're really on the fence about it, don't worry about spending the money on them until you figure out if you do really need them. And trust me, the first 2 days of the Camino, arguably the hardest days of the Camino, you're going to kind of figure it out. Now, from Roncesvalles to Zubiri is no fun without them, in my experience, but plenty of people do it without them, and they make it just fine. So, if you're not sure, you're 50-50, you don't want to spend the money on them, just give it a go for a few days when you get there, but just know that there's plenty of places. In fact, as you just get over the bridge in Zubiri, one of the first shops on the left is a Camino shop where you can pick up a pair of poles right there if you want them for the rest of the way in. If not, Pamplona is the next day. You can just grab a set in Pamplona at one of the many, 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 many places to get them. If you're just going to do one Camino, maybe you don't know, don't spend money on very expensive poles. Hiking poles can go up in excess of a couple $100s. My first aluminum ones I got in Pamplona, I think, were 29 euros for the pair. Now, they may be a little more expensive. That was, 8 years ago. So maybe a little more expensive now, but just, don't spend a whole lot of money on tech you may not need. Seems to be a reoccurring theme here, but I see people that spend huge amounts of money on Camino stuff, and then they either don't like the Camino or they have no intention of ever using this stuff again. And why not use that money for better lodging or better food or upgrading your flight, something a little more fun? So, pole tips. I'm going to grab two of my hiking poles here, and we're going to get into different types of poles, but I just wanted to show you guys a couple of tips. So, a standard hiking pole, these are my collapsible carbon fibers. These take a standard, see if I can get that in front of me enough. These take a standard hiking tip, standard diameter hiking tip. Underneath this tip, there is a tungsten carbide grippy tip that you use for stone, mud, uncertain surfaces where you need to dig in a little bit. This protects that when you're in cities, towns, on concrete, things you don't want to tear up, because these carbon tips can tear up concrete, bridges, anything they touch. You can really do some damage. When you have millions of strikes over time, it will do a little bit of damage. So the tips are important. My preferred tip, now all hiking poles are going to come with tips, more or less. We'll talk about this other one here in a minute. Most of the tips that come with a set of hiking poles are okay. They may not last you an entire Camino, and when they get worn, they get slippery, so you'll find yourself, putting weight on them or stabilizing, and they slip a little bit. So you definitely want to get good tips. My favorite brand are these guys from Leki, Leki. They are, if you're here in the United States, sorry, yep, LEKI. If you're here in the States, these are really expensive. But once you hit the EU, they're really cheap. I can get them in Saint Jean, sorry, relatively inexpensively, and I usually get a new pair when I go. I put them on, then throw my old ones in my pocket for a backup. Beware of hiking poles that take a non-standard size tip. These are hiking poles from Durston. They take an oddball tip that there's only one company that makes tips for, and these did not come with tips. Very annoying. I haven't decided if I'm going to take these yet. But these, again, have the carbon tungsten carbon tip on them for grabbing into stone and concrete and whatever else. Not concrete, sorry, stone and mud and whatever ice. But these tips, I had to order another set on Amazon because I can't find them anywhere else, and they're really expensive, and I'm not happy. By expensive, I mean $25 a pair. The Lecky tips that I get when I'm in Spain usually run me about €5 per pair. Again, maybe a little more expensive now. We've had some inflation issues, but getting poles with a standard size tip really helps. Other considerations when getting your poles, and weirdly, that the tip thing is paramount because it just annoys me that I have to get special things. These are my carbon fibers. They are a sectional pole that are really great for packing. If you're going to check your bag, you can throw these in your backpack. They fold up nicely, and to assemble them, you just make sure everything's lined up. You pull this little guy, they snap into place. They're not going anywhere. These are fantastic. Little heavy because of all the gizmos that are inside them to make them work, but they do work well. These were fairly inexpensive on Amazon. I can't even tell you what brand they are. Hang on. Just says Carbon Pro. Tell you what, I'll look back on my Amazon or all my Amazon purchases, and I'll put right here the brand. There you go. These others from Durston, these are, again, carbon fiber. These are they only come in 2 pieces. These are going to be a little harder to get into a backpack and a little harder to check that way, but they just snap together and then you're good to go. And they have a little push button to take them apart. Now, the ones I wanted to show you are the telescoping ones, which have little these cam locks that telescope the parts back and forth. They basically have 3 of them. You extend everything out. My very favorite poles, my REI Flash carbons, I left them at an albergue on my last day of my last Camino when I had to come home. So you might be saying, hey, didn't you tell us just a week or 2 ago that you really needed to organize everything so you wouldn't forget everything? And if everything has a place and everything's in its place, you won't forget everything? Moving on. Hi, everybody. Post-production Mark. Just a second ago, I talked about carrying on your backpack and poles, or checking your backpack and poles. Most airlines and the TSA, they can't get it together. They won't tell you whether you can carry your poles on. Usually the rule is you cannot. So if you want to carry on your backpack, but you want to check your poles, what I've always done in the past is I'll get a mailing tube from UPS store or Office Depot, wherever. I will cut it down to the length I need for my hiking poles. I'll drop the hiking poles in. I label this with all of the flight info, my name, email, phone number, all of that good stuff. Tape it shut, and then I check this. I've done this over and over and over. I've never had an issue with losing them or had any problems with it. The airline just seems to be really used to oddball little things like this. The one thing I'll mention, if you go crazy and you put a pocket knife in here because you carry a pocket knife, which I do, Yeah, it's really hard to get out of the tube that's sealed with strapping tape when the knife you need to open the tube is inside the tube. So maybe not go as crazy with the tape. Anyway, so back to my really unorganized talk, and I'll see you guys next week. So unfortunately I can't show you those, but any of these work great. The choice between carbon fiber or um, aluminum is purely, its weight, its cost. Carbon fibers are going to be more expensive than aluminum. Aluminum are going to be a little heavier. They all work just the same. It's a stick. The biggest difference is, like, I have, due to some old martial arts injuries, I get a lot of elbow pain from the shock of the aluminum ones, the shock traveling up in through the stick into my elbow. So carbon fiber, because it's a little, it absorbs some of the vibration, as near as I can tell, a little bit easier on my joints. So I tend to go with carbon fiber. The other thing to consider is grips. Grips come typically in a natural cork or a synthetic neoprene or some sort of gushy foam stuff. Which you get is totally up to you. I haven't used corks yet in hot weather. I do tend to get sweaty paws, so I've always gone with the neoprene ones. I'm worried that the cork ones, they do absorb water relatively well. I'm worried that they're going to get slippery and manky, so I'll have to report back after I try these in a situation where I'm going to get some decent perspiration going, and we'll see how those goes. Like I said, I haven't really decided which I'm going to take. But the albergue, where my favorite poles are, it's actually, I'll go through it on my first day. So I might just take a chance and see if they're there and wait and get another pair. But I just got these Durstons on sale last spring, and they weigh nothing. I'm really looking forward to trying those out. So that's the three types, the different grips and such. And again, just try to analyze what you think you might need and give them a try. They're all just fine. Heck, if you really want to, get a really cheap pair on Amazon and just see if the function of a pole makes sense or set of poles makes sense for you. And then if it does, maybe invest in a decent set for your actual Caminos. But, give it a try. So how to use the poles. There's weirdly a little bit of a science to this. There's two things. How do you adjust them? Basically, you want to, and let me grab one that's assembled here. I'll do with a Durston. So the pole, when we snap together, it is sort of in its factory setting. So we need to figure out how long or short does this pole need to be. And what we want is, when we're gripping the pole, we want our forearm to be perpendicular to the ground. You don't want to be a little bit up. You don't want to be a little bit down. This is for normal flat land walking. You want your arm to look like the flat land. So what we're going to do is unlock the cam lock, that little guy right there, and we're going to extend the pole out to whatever length we need. For me, it's about 112 millimeters. And all poles, all good quality poles, they're actually marked from different millimeter gradients. For me, it's about 112 millimeters, which is right there. I know that if I go to get to that, I don't have to think about it. I'm ready to go. What I do is, once I find the perfect place for my length, I don't just rely on this. I draw a little Sharpie mark around it, so I don't even have to really think about it. I just pull it out. Okay, there's my Sharpie mark. I'm good to go. Give that a try, and just try different lengths. But you want to get that forearm to be perpendicular to the ground. Now, going downhill, I'm going to extend this out an extra whatever, an extra couple of centimeters to make them longer. so that I can reach out with that pole to be able to put it on the ground and use that, my two poles, as stability. If they're at our normal flatland level, it's a little hard and you have to bend out, so making these longer lets you reach out a little more. And these are super easy to adjust on the fly. There's not one setting for everything. The other thing is, when we're going uphill, I actually knock these down to, I said millimeters, it's actually centimeters, I believe. I'm going to knock these down to 110. So they're a little shorter. So as I'm going uphill, I'm not trying to wave big long poles in front of me like a praying mantis to try to get my footing. Shorter just works a little easier uphill. Play with it, find those measurements that are right for you, and then mark them on your poles. And here's the weird thing. Your arms aren't the same length. So you may have slight variations left to right. And believe it or not, there actually are, in some of the higher end poles, there can be a left pole and a right pole. Don't worry about it too much, but just mark them for yourself. And if you find one, you need a longer one in one hand, just make a little mark somewhere on your pole that designates one is right, one is left. Just work it out. So once you get that down, the next thing is, how do you hold these darn things? And that's going to seem kind of like a silly question. Let me grab this one that's broken apart here. So you'll notice on the grip, we've got a wrist strap. Naturally, you think, well, it's a wrist strap. There we go. We're done. Why is this complicated? Believe it or not, that is the wrong way to put your hand through the wrist strap of a hiking pole. What you actually want to do is imagine your hand going up a tree next to the tree. You're going to go through the loop, open, and you're going to come back down. So the strap is coming up. My gimbal is messing with me here. That strap is coming across your palm when you wrap your hand. The reason is, if you trip with it the other way, this is brand new. So if you trip with it the wrong way, this way, it can lead to fractures because your thumb gets trapped in a couple of different ways. If you look up ski pole injuries, hand injuries, it's really crazy common. But when you come up the tree, through the strap, and back down, there's almost really no way you can fall and get that thumb trapped because it's not being wedged in there. The other thing this allows you to do is, as you're putting weight on the pole, this strap technique allows you to transfer weight from your hand through the strap to the pole without death gripping the pole. You can actually figure out, once you get it set, and I've just about got these dialed in, you can get it set to where you hold your poles the entire time you're walking. Even when you're going uphill, you're never gripping it by any more than your forefinger and your thumb. And really, all it is just a... Sorry, my phone's being dumb today. So really, once you get this perfected, you can grab that thing and just lightly grip it. You should never feel any fatigue or soreness through that forearm because you're having to death grip this stupid pole. You want it to be fairly loose and a fluid motion. You want it to be able to rock a little bit in your hands if you're not doing Nordic walking, where you're keeping it behind you. You want it to be able to rock out as you just gently sling it, let it go forward. You've got loose fingers. It's amazing how comfortable this can be. Again, play with the adjustments. You'll see on the strap here, you've got this little guy and a wedge. If you pull this out, it's going to loosen that wedge, and you can shorten or lengthen this as you need it. I end up messing with this all the time because if I put on a pair of gloves that's heavier than normal, maybe I need to loosen this a little bit. In the summer when it gets a little sweaty, I may tighten it a little bit just so I've got a little more control. But Play around with that. It's really remarkable. And again, look on YouTube because there's all people that are a lot better at this than I am to tell you how this stuff works. I've covered don't buy expensive. So let's talk about pole etiquette. And this is something that just drives me crazy. And I know my Camino in 2022, I drove my buddy Kelly nuts with this, to the point where he was just done with my BS at one point. So, number one, don't wave your poles around. As you're hiking, just remember there's a whole wide world out there. When you're sitting, if you're stopping on the trail, stop, turn to the side so you can see both ways on the trail, back off the trail, and keep your poles up and down in front of you. Don't splay them out. Don't splay them forward into the Camino path. There's people on bicycles. There's runners. There's all sorts of people using that path. Don't impede it with your poles because these darn things are almost always black. They're hard to see when you're doing stuff. So keep them towards you. Keep them in. And when you're walking, don't wave them around a lot. You don't want to have them just out. Sorry, contractor. Yeah, just keep them tucked in. And as you're walking and you're talking, watch where your poles are going. And this is what Kelly finally was just like, Mark, shut up, is when you're carrying your poles. Say we're just walking, we're not using our poles. Please don't carry them. And this is the natural way you'd think you'd carry them. I've got them both in my hand. I'm carrying them grip forward. Please don't do that. Carry them tip forward. The reason is, for most people, your natural carry height, your natural carry weight, this is especially if you don't have the tips on. You've got your tips in your pocket because you've been walking on gravel. I cannot tell you how many times in a crowd of pilgrims, because I wasn't paying attention, I got too close, I have been poked in the crotch with a hiking pole. Not that I want to get poked in the crotch with a hiking pole, but I would rather get poked in the crotch with that than that. That than that. It drives me nuts. So just be aware of others around you. Get both poles in one hand. Try to keep them tucked in. And keep the gushy bit back where you can't see anything. Keep the sharp, horrible bit up in front where you see where it is. And, well, try not to poke anybody with it. The other thing, I kind of covered this a little bit, but basic etiquette is, if you're in a village, town, city, whatever, or on a paved road, or sidewalks, anything like that, bridges, blah, 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 unless it's icy, slippery, or for some reason very uncertain, keep your tips, the rubber tips, on your poles. Did I just say that backwards? You want your rubber tips on your poles when you're in a city, on concrete, on roads, XYZ, unless it's slippery, dangerous, or you really need that extra traction in those circumstances for whatever reason. The reason is those carbon tips will take chips out of rock. They'll definitely gouge the heck out of wooden bridges and such. There's a bridge on the way to Logroño that has just been torn up, and they have to replace the wooden things in those things, the slats in that bridge. Every couple of years, I've noticed they're having to replace that because people use their steel tips on it. Be aware the cities and stuff have to, or the local communities have to pay for that stuff. So just really try to be careful and don't tear up the everything. The other thing is, and I know when you're going, it gets a little easy to forget this stuff, but one of the things that it just tickled me to death, I did a recording of it, is a group of pilgrims crossing the pedestrian bridge into Astorga, which is a steel bridge. None of them had put their hiking tips on, and it sounded exactly like this. And that bridge is torn up constantly by folks just banging the tungsten carbide tips down. It's really, really, really not good. And it sounded like a hailstorm on a metal roof, which here in Kansas we get a lot. So there you go. So that's about it for hiking poles. Hopefully this was a shorter one than usual because there's just not a whole lot to talk about except for their poles that you hike with. Give it a shot. You may like them. I hope you do. And they made a dramatic difference. My first 2 days of my very first 3 days of my very first Camino in 2017, I had a really bad time, and I should have had hiking poles, and my friend Fernando reserved the right to tell me I needed hiking poles. And I think I gave him 100 I told you so's after that, after I got them in Pamplona and realized what a difference it made for me. So I'm going to take the Fernando law and apply it that if you think you don't need hiking poles and then you find out by Pamplona you do, I get to tell you at minimum 100 times I was right. So there you go. So favorite thing this week. And I'm going to ramble a little bit here, but my favorite thing is a dessert that you really never see here in the United States, unless you have a really big Spanish community around you. You might, but you just don't see it here. Sorry. So desserts in Spain tend to be smaller, lighter, not as giant and foolish as we do in the United States. Not that there's anything wrong with a foolish dessert. And in Spain and France, a cheese course at the end is very common. Now, what they do in Spain is they add a little twist to it. They add something called membrillo. You will see on menus, you will see queso con membrillo or membrillo con queso. Membrillo is also the name of a fruit. It's a relative of an apple. It looks like that. They're very fragrant. There's only a few of them you can actually eat raw. They're more of a cooking thing, but they will cook them down into a paste. You get membrillo jelly and jams as well, but they will cook and cook and cook and cook and cook until you get a paste. And then that paste is combined with cheese, typically manchego, something like that, on a plate. And it makes for an amazing light dessert that's just sweet enough, has just enough fat from the cheese that it hits all those dessert buttons without really loading you down and making you regret your life choices. The restaurants, typically it looks like that. That's from a bar just outside of Roncesvalles. In Arnegay, I think. Anyway, so your other option is if you order it from Amazon, the membrillo, and you have some manchego around the house, you too can have membrillo con queso for a little snacko. And it's, what time is it? It's almost 1 o'clock, so I get to have a snack. And quite literally, probably shouldn't be advertising this as finger food, but it's just the membrillo, the quince paste, and cheese. And this stuff it's the perfect combo. Oh. Sorry. I'm not sorry. I regret nothing. Anyway, please try it. You're going to see it in bars, restaurants, everything. You'll see it very, very often. And also keep in mind, if you see something like on a legit sit-down restaurant, we'll just say fruit as a dessert. You're not getting a fruit plate. You're getting an apple or an orange or something. Very often in restaurants, ice cream is just like a Dove bar in a wrapper. It's very rarely like a bowl of ice cream like we think about here in the States. But anyway, please, please, please try the membrillo. When you're in grocery stores, the little tiendas, you can find this stuff. I want to say last time I was there, I found it in the little foil covered wedges in a round, like Laughing Cow cheese or the President Brie, those little cheese wedge guys. You can get membrillo in those little wedge guys. And I bought like 4 of those and had them in my backpack and used them as my little energy shots as I was walking. It was fantastic. So, favorite place. I promised you I would go further west. I'm going to try to keep going west a little bit. So there is, in Ponferrada, if you're having a down day on Pamplona, or if you're staying for the night, if it's open, it's hard to miss. There's a castle. There's a 12th century castle. It's actually built on the ruins of a Roman fortification, I believe. It is really neat. They have a self-guided tour. It cost a couple of euros, no big deal. I think when my brother-in-law Clyde and I were there, it was like on a Tuesday or something, so it was free. Even if it's a few euros, it's worth roaming around. It's the easiest castle that's right on the Camino there is to really kind of get around and look. Up in the very top, there's a library of historic books and an entire, how do we put this politely? So if you've never seen really good medieval calligraphy and illumination, amazing examples. They're all facsimiles. They're hand-done facsimiles, so they're not the actual ancient things, but they're under glass. You can get very close to see the workmanship and the artistry of these things. It's really cool. Please go take a look. I want to say there's even a little cafe and some stuff in there, if I remember correctly, but all the inner courtyards are there. On one of the, as you're just walking on one of the levels, there's I'm not sure when it's from, I want to say 14th century, might be 13th century cannon, and it's an old, very primitive field piece. It's kind of scary. I can't imagine shooting something like that, because it's not even cast in one piece. But take a look. It's pretty neat. So if you get a chance, please go. Particularly if you're from the US, you don't get a whole lot of chances to actually touch a castle from the Middle Ages. It's really neat. And once you're inside a castle, you can see why it's like, okay, these things took years to try to siege and take over because they're made to not let you. They're very impressive. So go have some fun. And right around the castle there are tons of great restaurants. If you walk past the entrance to the castle, if you take a right and you go up that road, there's a couple of dynamite pizza joints. There's a really great ice cream place. So yeah, go take a look around. It's a fun town. And here's a pro tip. As you're leaving Ponferrada, the route takes you past the castle, blah, 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 blah. You're going to cross over a bridge. You're going to go through a little bit of a park that runs along the river you just crossed over the river on a bridge. There's a park that runs across that. The Camino is marked to take you deep into not a commercial area, but there's apartments and bars and all sorts of stuff, and it wanders you all the way back around after it feels like 2 or 3 kilometers to the head of the park you just crossed. And there ain't nothing in there that's worth seeing. Sorry, Ponferrada. Your apartment buildings are tall. Okay? Can we get on with it? So, if you want to save some time, as you cross over the bridge for the river and you hit that park, just hang a right and just go through the park, and you'll know when you're going to connect back up with the Camino, because in a little bit, you're going to hit a museum of energy. It's an old power generating station. I think it might have been an old hydro station or something that was on the river. Hard to miss. You're going to rejoin the Camino there. Just save yourself a whole lot of wandering around. Personally, I've gotten lost in Ponferrada twice because I've forgotten about that little shortcut. So, use that. Okay, that's about it for this week. I apologize. I am scatterbrained with everything that's going on. They're getting ready to prep to put windows in, and the roofers are supposed to show up here pretty quick if the snow ever melts off. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. If you're not from the U.S., I hope you had a last Thursday too big of a meal day. Or just spent some time with family and friends in the last week. Next week, we're going to talk about travel technology, hardware and software, the bits you need to keep your technology alive, and some really cool software apps, some really cool apps for your phone or your tablet, whatever you're using, to make the Camino really cool. And they're apps that I haven't shown you yet. I haven't even referenced yet, but I use them every single time and I absolutely love them. So I hope you have a great week. And as long as that house over there doesn't collapse or anything, I will see you guys next week. Bye.